traffic, weather, but we are going to make a start. So firstly, can we have everyone rise for the Indian National Anthem? Thank you. Okay, well, today we really look forward to the event. Compared to a lot of previous CTBUH events, it's interesting because we've got foreign guests that kind of contribute over 50% of the presentation. And we've got a bit of a surprise as well in CTBUH here, which I'll let you know about. But of course, we can't have a function without two key ingredients, the presenters, and I'll introduce to you the presenters a little bit later on, but we've got two presenters from a very reputable company, architectural firm in Netherlands, in Rotterdam, UN Studio, and we've got two speakers from a very reputable Indian architectural firm, one of the largest, if not the largest, and Hafiz Contractor. And I'll introduce the speakers a little bit later on. And on the other side, we need sponsors. And we're very grateful for the sponsors, Siderise, UN Studio, Whitby Wood, Britain Dasani, Turner, and Shuko. So we thank you. We're going to be pretty prompt. Sorry for a little bit of a delay. I've got a bit of a timetable here. I'll be running the show for the presenters. I'll be giving you a little bit of a deadline and a little bit of a bell to make sure you do finish on time, because I think everyone's keen on getting together and talking to each other during the cocktails and dinner. And so there's going to be plenty of time to interact there. So I'll be pretty quick with my introductions. It's a pretty full-on timetable, and so I hope that you'll be attentive and don't wander off. We'll have plenty of time to have a good time later on. And so very, very quickly, I'm not going to go through the details, but we've got four speakers. We've got Apurva Sharma from Hafiz Contractor Architects. We've got Ren Yi, and I think we've got some misspellings in some of the slides, but it is Ren Yi, not Re Yi. So Ren, apologies for that. Carl Wadia from Hafiz Contractor Architects, and Tom Minderheld from UN Studio. And I'm sure, please make sure that you do have a chat with our presenters and exchange notes. So to start off with, we have got our CTBUH representatives. You know Girish Dravid, he's the CTBUH Chairman of India. He's going to talk a little bit about CTBUH India. And then our very special guest, and you probably don't know, but in Singapore, the last international conference, Sean Mills became the new CTBUH Chairman. And we're privileged to have him here. Sean, thank you for coming all this way. We look forward to Sean. I think Sean's going to be an interesting chairman because he's based in our region. He's based in Singapore, and in the last few months, it's been a real privilege, Sean, that you've taken a lot of interest in this region, and we really appreciate that. So without further more to do, I'd like to call on Girish. And Girish, you can say a few words in CTBUH India. And And maybe Sean, you can come up here as well because it's a show between both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. And even if it's just 6:20, I see hall becoming more and more full. Hi. So I won't take much time this time because every time I come up here and talk about CTBUH India, its activities, and what we have done over past 9 years. In fact, 9 years since we officially established ourselves as a non-governmental organization and a legal entity as CTBUH India chapter. But prior to that, for 4 years, we were uh, holding such events. And so, okay, thanks. So this is CTBUH India, and somebody asked me today how many events. Sean asked me how many events we have held so far. So I have the count. This is the 56th event. So our chapter is very, very active. In fact, I don't know whether we are the most active chapter in the world. We have to establish that, but we are quite active. I am not going to go through all the events that just keep on looking at the screen and all the things that we have done so far. But one thing that I want to tell very sincerely that this chapter is being run by professionals who are themselves very active professionals. They run their own businesses, and all the core team members of this chapter are mostly owners or CEOs of their respective organizations. They have their own business to run, and they spend a lot of energy and time to run CTBUH India chapter with their own time and their office resources as well. And so naturally, we run short of manpower. We also have these events, mostly or almost all the events are not paid by the audience. So this is by invitation, and we select our audience according to the theme of the event, and this is our specialization. Uh, I want you people to know that because this is by invitation, the invitation that we send you as a link is only for you. It can be easily shared to someone else, but then we'll land up having people who are not concerned with the theme, and we don't want that to happen. So please be sure that you use that link for yourself. Please come to the event as a guest and uh, have the benefits of what we share. CTBUH India depends on only sponsorship amounts, not on the fees or membership fees. And because all this is happening voluntarily, I want to tell you that very little is known about CTBUH India activities. In fact, Carl, some incidents happened, and surprisingly, many people, although in this field, they don't know what CTBUH India is doing. As I'm telling you, this is the 56th event in last 11 years. This is a phenomenal work that we have done. But so with your support, look at this. This is the compilation 2015 to 2023. Just keep on looking how many events we have carried out. And all events are full just like this. As we invite selected guests, almost every guest makes a point to attend it because they get some value out of it. And you see some pictures. I'll show you one picture. Look at this. This is a walk where more than 100 people attended just by invitation. And this is a great work, Sean, we are doing. You will be happy to note this. So, in short, uh, please support us by just participating in our activities and attending our events. That's it. That's all we want. And although we are going slow, we have financial constraints, we have manpower constraints, but we'll go steadily ahead, spread our wings, spread ourselves into developers and architects and all professionals, you know, uh, but that will be very steady progress. We will continue to do this, but with sincerity and firmly. So, and of course, our members are everywhere. They have gone internationally, and there is recognition as well. So, I don't, this is the only point I wanted to make this time. Otherwise, the pictures speak for themselves. Now, I want Sean to come on board and tell something about CTBUH itself. I'll just finish. This is our this year's program, right? So we have already charted the program for this year: sustainability, carbon neutrality, structural design, uh, then tall building seminar on passive fire strategies. All this will happen this year. All programs are finalized, dates have been finalized, and the relevant audience will be invited. Be assured of that. So that's it. And so we are here. ARCHFOLIO, you will witness very good presentations by these 4 people today. Sean, please come and talk something about CTBUH.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's great to be here. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you to Guresh and the whole local steering committee team. I mean, it is absolutely phenomenal what you've achieved over the last 11 years. I think you probably are the most active chapter in the world. And I think my presentation soon. But it's fantastic to be here. I've been to Mumbai many times. We have a large office with Mukesh and the team of about 80 people now, and I love it every time I come. I mean, it's just such an intense experience, and I mean, it's growing even faster and faster each time I get here. And so I'm really excited that I can announce that this region is really going to be a focus for the CTBUH in the coming months and years. And during my chairmanship, I'm going to make sure that this is a real focus for the organization, because this is where it's all happening, and this is where we can do the most good for the environment. So most of you know the CTBUH is quite a mouthful. It's an organization for about 50 years old, but for those of you who don't, I'll tell you a little about what we do. It was founded in 1969, about 55 years ago, and what we are is the largest nonprofit organization for sustainable vertical urbanism, and that is the business of city building, and that's what we're here to talk about today. And our membership is wide and vast. It includes, obviously engineers, architects, developers, and academia, but also policymakers. And so we're really excited. I think we're probably one of the most multidisciplinary organizations in the world. That's why it's so exciting. And also our reach being global. I mean, the number of chapters that we have, I believe, is up to about 20. And what I really love the most is the kind of network and the friends you make around the world in the business with the CTBUH. So what do we do? Our main purpose, raising detriment while we're here, is information dissemination. It's around sharing best practice. It's around for us to be able to come together and learn together around the business of building cities. And so a lot of what we do, and coming together for business networking, like we're doing tonight, we have a big R&D division. So I don't know if many of you have had a chance, but the main reason that I was originally attracted to the CTBUH is around to learn. And we spend a lot of time, with the help of our membership, putting together guides around the art and science of designing tall buildings. And this is just an example of some of the information you can find on our website. Some of you have contributed to. But so anything you want: wind tunnel testing, robotics, green walls, all the new hot topics around how to make cities great, you can find. So have a look at our website if you haven't had a chance. And one of the new initiatives I'm very excited about, we started just this year, is our new City Advocacy Forum. And what it is, over 50 years, I mean, we've really been a organization of a bunch of scientists and engineers and really nerdy, actually. And we really kind of, get into the technical thing. But I think, where we are today, the world really needs more. And we
we have a duty, I think, actually kind of come out of our scientific shell and actually be the voice of future cities, actually advocate for, what is best practice in cities. So on that basis, what we've done is we've created a new program where we actually bring together policymakers. We started in Miami, where we brought together Toronto, London, Miami, and Singapore to come together and share what are their concerns, what are the challenges, and what are the some of the best practices for solving those challenges in cities. And it's been really a great program. We also did it in Istanbul, and we're going to do it again in London and also in Bangkok later this year. And we're taking that information, we're actually creating a playbook so we can all learn from each other around how to deal with the issues we have today. And I'm really looking forward to, bringing Mumbai and India into that conversation, because I think it'll really benefit the amount of growth you're having here. So I want to talk about regional conferences. So one of the new things that we've also been doing, besides our big annual conference like we had in Singapore, have in London, is we're starting to have these regional events. And last year we started out and we do them in the Americas, Europe, and then Asia. So there's one selected. It's an event like this, but it's kind of a bigger event supported by Chicago, kind of one of these events, but on steroids. So we ended up with, it was a really great success, but the idea is how to create new markets and again, bring everyone together to have a discussion. So 2023 was our pilot year, and now we've really started to ramp it up again. And so our first one this year was in Miami. It was a really great success, and that's really to start to bring our arms around Latin America, where there's also a huge amount of growth. Then in Istanbul, which was in April. But this year we're doing one in Bangkok, and it's actually really a lot of interest. We're really excited about it, and that'll be in December. So if you have a chance to come along to that, please do. But I'd really like to talk about something special. We're really excited, and Gresh, if you could come up and maybe announce this for me.
I missed it.
We've got something to share with you. So would you like to tell us?
Yep, please. That's right. So our whole CTBUH Mumbai, India chapter campaigned for a regional conference in Mumbai in 2025, and it has been granted, and we will be starting our preparations immediately, and with the help of all of you. And I must tell you that many of you will be contacted by us for support in any kind, and please help us making this Mumbai regional conference a success. That will be pride for India. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you, Sean. And Sean has been quite instrumental in helping us in going there. And we assure him that Mumbai Regional Conference will be a very different type of conference apart from all the regional conferences that he has shown there. So that is on our shoulders, and I hope you will cooperate, help, and succeed in making that. Thank you. Thank you.
No, I'm super excited, and I think that it's really the time to do something like this in Mumbai. I think, and actually, where we are, the amount of growth and excitement, this could be the biggest regional conference we've ever done. So I'm really counting on all of you to get involved with your ideas and your passion and to make this something very special. So now I'm talking about the annual conference. If you haven't already booked your tickets for London, don't miss it. It's going to be fantastic. It's at the Barbican Center. And the theme is really relevant right now. It's around the theme of new or renew. How do we reuse all of these assets that we've been building for the past 50 years? And so I'm really excited about the dilemma that we're facing around circularity. And we've already broken all of our records, previous records around the number of sponsors. You can see the names up there. Some of them, many of them you'll recognize, many of them are some of you. But if you haven't booked your spot, please come along. We'd love to see you there. You can help promote the 2025 Mumbai Regional Conference as well. And then about to wrap up, we've got a couple new publications that are just coming out. We have our new Humanizing High Density Data Handbook, which is, we love data. We love the statistics of tall buildings. It's one of my favorite things is to look at all the different heights and the growths. And actually, I'll show you a little excerpt from the new data handbook. So Many of you have seen these before. This is the kind of information that we try to store and keep an eye on. But this is the growth of the tall building industry over the past 40, 50 years. And you can see really steep climb. And yet again, 2023, 2024 have not disappointed. It's been the most completions of tall buildings over 200 meters ever. So you can see the growth to cities continues to just continues. And then if you look at Asian countries, it's also very interesting. So where does India sit in this ranking? So you're doing pretty well. You're actually sitting at, I think, number 6, and if you look at over 200 meters, you're actually at number 5. So top 5 countries there. But let's delve in a little bit deeper. How do you think Mumbai's doing? Can anyone guess? Pretty well, I think. So this is the growth of 150 meters for taller buildings in Mumbai. So you can see really steep curve of doing up to around 100 total buildings. But then, sorry, this is India, but this is Mumbai. But then if you compare that with Mumbai's share in India, and it's actually, so you are the capital of tall buildings for India, but you knew that already. But I think you should be proud of that. So let's hear it from Mumbai. And then you can see the future growth. The trajectory just continues, and you can see it's accelerating. So I think this is really your time for high rise in Mumbai. So that's all I have for you. So have a great conference. If I haven't had a chance to meet you face to face, please come up and say hello. I'd love to hear what you're doing and how things are going. And I look forward to seeing all of you later tonight and seeing you in London. So next speaker.
Thank you, Girish. Thank you, Sean. It's lovely having you here. And it'd be great if you can visit, attend the international conference in London. But I think probably even more importantly, Bangkok's a little bit closer. And yeah, I think one of the things that we like to do for the Mumbai conference is to get a lot of international attendees, not just to be an Indian conference. We truly want it to be a regional conference and an international conference. Okay, so let me set up for our next speaker. I'd like to invite Apurva to be our first speaker. Apurva, I know her personally. It's a privilege working on one of the projects with Hafiz Concrete where she was heading it, a big project in Delhi, but I'll let her talk about it or Carl talk about it. I don't want to spend too much introducing you, Apurva. You're well known here. We look forward to your talk. Please welcome. Set it up for you. Is that much? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank CTBUH for inviting me here. I'm extremely humbled. Yeah, thank you. So while everyone here in this forum is going to talk about tall buildings, and the topic was like a kaleidoscope of design ideas, I thought I would talk about some horizontal developments and some unique projects in India that we've completed. Carl will be talking about the tall buildings that our studio has completed recently. So the first project I'm going to talk about is about respecting the heritage. It's a campus in Rajasthan, a very, very reputed institute constructed in 1960, which had a beautiful style of architecture. And the client wanted to wanted us to design a building, a new academic block in this campus. The only area, can I have a pointer, please? The only area that was available was between the clock tower which was the kind of identity of the whole institute, which formed a visual axis. Uh, yeah, okay. So, and between the clock tower and the Saraswati temple was a visual axis, which was kind of the main theme of designing this institute initially. And when we extruded the requirement, the requirement would actually block the visual axis. So what we decided was to kind of split it into two parts and still maintain the visual axis, but that didn't solve the issue. It still was kind of breaking uh, the visual axis and the openness of what used to be. And we decided to sink it down. Which you see in the last image out here, and still have maintained the axis. What you see here in the last image is the plan wherein the institute is kind of sunken, and it's designed to have, this is the completed image. This is the model that was presented, and it was actually a competition entry. So we won that, considering the basis of design. So if you see the section, all these the steps are going down, taking you to the middle of the academic space, and you've got light and ventilation right across through the through the to the classrooms, maintaining the visual axis. That's the Saraswati temple. And this section kind of shows that how well ventilated, how well lit the entire classroom spaces or the labs are. What was also challenging is that the only interface between the existing buildings and the new building was these portals which were created. And we had these beautiful arches which kind of resonated with the existing campus architecture. So which kind of were the interface between the existing architecture and the current one. These screens were designed in order to kind of have enough sunlight. At the same time, it's Rajasthan, so to even kind of shade the thing. And a central rotunda was created as the space where the entire, gatherings or, evening events, etc. can happen. The next project I'm going to talk about is another unique project in Rajasthan, in Jaipur. And as you all know, India is known for colors, vibrancy, and its own heritage. So, in this particular project, uh, it's a large site, and cutting through is a national highway. What we see here, this was one of the main drivers for designing the campus. So the main admin building was located here. All the academic spaces are located here. And this HT line was actually like a blessing in disguise, because we had this entire HT line in the setback with lots of trees and greenery, and which kind of subdivided the two plots into like the girls' side and the boys' side of the hostel. And that helped us create the layout. Now, what was very important to us was to not make the campus feel that it's just anywhere in the country. So we took the vibrancy and colors of Rajasthan, and these smaller details like what you have here, what we have here, and the limited amount of budget that we had, we created. Now, this campus being in Rajasthan was also designed, these are all air conditioned rooms, of course, but obviously we have to keep in mind the energy bills, etc. So each chhaja is designed based on what the sun path analysis says. And these cutouts, what you see here, double height, triple height, are all a solution to what the wind path says. So that at the grade level, there is complete comfort. So even at this point in time, if you go here, you will feel absolute comfort in these walkways or the shaded areas. And now what you see here is where the HT line is gone. We've kind of rerouted it, but it kind of helped us create this ambience, which without an HT line would have just been like a typical building. So these are the walkways, extremely comfortable. You'll see, look at the chaja width. On the left you have it lesser, on the right you have it more. It's all scientifically designed. Courtyards to have courts where it's comfortable, and it's very, very well accepted by the students, and the students love it. And the colors of the camp from the exteriors are also kind of flowing into interiors where required. So this is one of the food court. We've also designed over here the largest campus which has got Griha 5 star. So through these studies and through these analysis, we've been able to kind of have LEED Platinum rating for 300 rooms. And it's also the largest net zero building in India with 3.5 lakh square feet. So that's the building we're talking about, the complete net zero building. That's an academic block, again designed. So what you see here, these jalis are actually, if you see these options, what was the base case, then we calculated the percentage, what's the daylight analysis, and what does it say, and based on that, every single side, the jali has been separately designed, the boxing has been designed accordingly, these courtyards to have these in proper shade and be usable was the main criteria for designing these. That's the lobby. It's a law college, so we took up the theme of the Constitution of India. Again, the colors flowing into the interiors as well. Uh, that's about Manipal. The next project I'm going to talk about is a museum. So, what's different between between a tall building and a low-rise building is all these public buildings, you won't see like a museum which is a high-rise museum, or you won't see too many institutes which are high-rise. So it's a residential building or a commercial or a hospitality thing. So we thought we'll again capture this one of the projects which is done. So this is the first maritime heritage complex of India. It was again a design competition wherein Lothal, which was the oldest known port of India, that's designed. And the design had to be such that it would inspire, it would also inform, and it would also weave the narrative of the climate change. Because once a port is now a completely landlocked area. So that's the story we had to weave in. And to a journey of discovery. So that's the master plan. It's cut through a national highway. We created an interchange for parking called Bagicha. Again, I'll show the visuals. And because this project is talking, it had to communicate the ethos or the history of Lothal, which had water bodies, which had canals. So that story kind of weaved into the entire master plan. So let's say these climate change or a maritime naval park. You could actually go in a boat all the way, come to the museum, or stay in an eco resort, come through the canal, and come into the museum. And that's the Maritime Institute that we've planned. So this master plan kind of also includes the museum, which has got 14 galleries. There's a lot of study which has gone into each and every gallery, and how the entire layout is planned is through. So the boats that I was talking about come and dock here at the jetty. That's the entrance plaza or the arrival plaza. And at the middle, we have created, that's the view from the Bagicha. This is the interchange wherein you come, you park, and that maintains a seamless connectivity of these boats which come, dock at the jetty. You can enter the museum. That's a lighthouse, which again resonates with the whole theme of maritime, uh, ethos. Some galleries, that's the view, nighttime view. And the gallery interiors and the walkways between the galleries are also designed in a way which communicate the era, which is, so you see the materials, you see the you see the form, which kind of resonates with the maritime boats, and the various courts which have their own theme, like an artisan court, which would have various artisans from the local community to come in and showcase their work. A sculpture court, which would have all the sculptural things, and the stepped well, which is again a very, very famous part of Ahmedabad, Gujarat, that kind of an area. That's the Kund or the stepped well. And then we've created the Lothal town, which is actually a town which is actually a replica of the Lothal town which existed 3,000 years ago. That's the section through the galleries. So two galleries, we've got larger volume. It's a Navy gallery. It's got large actual, ships and the helicopters. And what was also interesting is to create like an itinerary and the logo for the project, to have even design the dress code or the uniforms for the project. It was a very, very unique and interesting project. Moving to the next project, this is about IIM Calcutta, wherein the campus had, if any of you visited IIM Calcutta, it's got different architectural styles, no particular, it's randomly and haphazardly created. So what was very important is that we've created a roadmap which kind of leads it to a net zero campus, and that would be the first net zero carbon neutral campus in India. And how we designed the entire layout, considering, we what we had to do is we had to study how many buildings were, let's say, 40 to 50 years old, 30 to 40, 20 to 30, 10 to 20, and then also work with the faculty as to how we would kind of change the entire thing based on the student intake. So let's say there's a student intake, and what's eventually, when you kind of start knocking down buildings, what actually happens to the eventual student intake. So that was a very, very rigorous exercise. We had to focus on circulation. So while the campus had this beautiful lake, none of the frontages were utilized. So the hostel we kind of created in a way that it utilizes the pond in the center that's there, and people can actually enjoy it. So these wellness terraces, this was designed during COVID, and wellness was one of the main key criteria that it was designed with. So these are the terraces. That's the academic block, which again uh, earlier did not have, while it was sitting in an island having water all around, it did not have a promenade, it did not have, people could not, while being next to the water, they couldn't enjoy the water as much. So that was the main key design features of IIM Calcutta. And the last project that I'm going to talk about is again one of the competition winning projects, wherein it was Asanda's Capital and competition for a master plan layout, wherein it's a mixed use project with commercial, residential, uh, retail, etc. And here again, we designed the commercial block in a way that we just didn't want to do a glass building. We actually analyzed each and every facade, what was self shading, what's getting the shading from the left, from the right, from east and west. Accordingly, each facade was designed in a way, let's say it's a west facade, so what is the solar incidence on the uh, lower levels is getting shaded by the adjoining building, perforated panels where they need to be horizontal pins where the sun angle is lower, and accordingly we design the facade. I'm very glad to announce that amongst all 5 or 6 international players, we won this project. And uh, and terrace, which is also the fifth facade, like we say, was also utilized for solar panels and different kind of viewing galleries, biophilia, and the entire campus was designed in such a way, the residential buildings. And that's the certificate of what we won. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Apurva. It's great to see museums and cultural projects in India. I'm always used to these private developments of poor buildings, and it's really encouraging to see some amazing projects that you guys are doing, and I like to see more of it. I think it's a good trend. Okay, now we are going to our international guests, and Ren Yi. We welcome you here. At UN Studio, you know that I always think in terms of twisting towers. In my home country city in Melbourne, there's a bit of a twisting tower, and I thought it must be UN Studio. And sure enough, it was UN Studio. And every time I go on Sheikh Zayed Road, I see a twisting tower. It must be UN Studio. And sure enough, it's UN Studio. But you are not going to be talking about towers. We'll leave that to Tom. We welcome you in Mumbai, and we look forward to your talk. Okay, let me take that one. No, keep those in there. Just take that off.
Just leave it here now.
Yeah.
I don't need a charging. That's right. All right. Thank you for, first of all, I extend thank you for the warm welcome and the invitation. It's really exciting to be here. My name is Ren. Hello. Yeah. Good. My name is Ren. Bit of a history first, before otherwise you wouldn't understand my presentation. I'm a practicing architect. I was a practicing architect. I've been working with UN Studio for 15 years. I've been practicing in Asia and US. But 7 years ago, I swirled in the wrong direction for some, but for me, it's a very interesting direction. I'm moving over to strategists, becoming a consultancy, basically helping clients to understand their brief, trying to understand innovation, how does innovation apply to them, does it apply to them, and so on. So today's presentation, I will share with you my perspective and my learnings about innovation and technology from US, from Europe, and I would love to have a conversation with you. How does it apply to India? Because I know application is maybe a different perspective, a different direction, but it's really interesting to see what the world is doing and see the applicability. So I will talk in the brief we sent out, I call it human-centric technology integration for better urban living. So it's really from a human perspective. But I thought while I was on a plane, I thought, no, I like a different topic. I call it now every technology, everywhere, all at once. If you guys have seen that movie, you know what I'm referring to. But basically it refers to the fact that technology is coming from all around. We are calling it technology as a blanket statement, but actually it covers so many different types of technology that is growing. And it's coming from direction that you think is not applicable to you, but it will be affecting you as a professional. So, first of all, I want to share this image. Does anyone know this image? It is in the States. It's actually an autonomous vehicle by a company called Cruise, and it is owned by General Motors. First of all, I think technology is exciting. You know, they're bringing in testing this technology. AV driving is coming. Autonomous vehicle. AV stands for autonomous vehicle. AV is coming. AV is going to change the way we move. Down the road, maybe, but in US, it's really happening right now. They're talking about policy change. They're talking about what it needs to affect. what needs to be changed in order to adapt such technology into the city. But technology is messy. To implement such a technology here, you're talking about working with existing road, existing structure, existing behavior. People respond to autonomous car in a very different way. So technology is messy. But underneath the technology, it is converging. Technology is compounding, technology is converging. Because under these are the list of technology that is newly introduced and still evolving as we speak. So sensor technology, LiDAR technology, artificial intelligence and machine learning, vehicle to everything communication, because the car needs to talk, right? The car needs to talk to the car needs to talk to the city, and these are all communication. There's different technology that's applied. Advanced control systems, cybersecurity, and so on. So technology is fast, as you have seen it, right? You have seen that in the 60s, there's an invention of integrated circuit. From there, the microprocessing, personal computers in the 80s, I'm pretty sure you guys have witnessed the introduction of the first laptop. Then the www, the e-commerce, it was so exciting. But it has been quite a short amount of time for us to move from there to where we are today. 5G, they're talking about 6G connectivity. They're talking about quantum computing that's so fast, the speed of computing is so fast. They're talking about advanced robotics and machine learning. So technology is also fast. So what the academics are talking about, we're moving from the third generation, the third industry revolution, whereby technology moves from analog, electronic, and mechanic device to digital technology. When we move from here, it was very exciting. But now we're moving from third industrial revolution to the fourth industrial revolution. And fourth industrial revolution means it is a fusion of technology that will blur the line between physical, digital, and biological. But we have to be warned. Technology is being developed as we speak. We play a role in understanding where technology is coming from, what is the implication, and does it apply to us? I just want us to think a little bit about it. Anything that you guys do in the decisions that you do for the client or for yourself, you are part of the decision whether the technology comes or not. Because we need to know technology is many other layers that we're probably not thinking about. First, technology is blurring the biological sphere. This is very interesting because for those who know this image, this famous image, Neuralink, a company by Elon Musk, the owner of Tesla, in 2021, a couple of years ago, they tested an implant on the baboon, on the monkey. Basically, it's a brain chip that allows for the baboon to control from the brain the ping pong game, right? So what actually that's quite interesting. It allows for the implant a chip. It allows the baboon to hold a joystick, and every time when he plays and he hits the ball, they will give something sweet, a peanut butter, I think. And so it trains the monkey to play the game, but at one point, they actually detach the joystick. It's no longer there. The monkey, the system has already learned the brain wave and understand and control that through the brain. And fast forward, this is just this year. They already tested on the second patient, the implant chip. It's already happening. So it's a long way to go. There's a lot of things that we have to be aware of, but technology is blurring the biological sphere. And technology is omnipresent. It is everywhere. For those who have downloaded ChatGPT, those who have absorbed ChatGPT, anyone here use ChatGPT? It changes your life. And now I talk to ChatGPT when I'm biking to work. I'm using the 4.0. So you know that ChatGPT just released the 4.0 omni-channel, and also Astra from Google also just launched this. But what I want to highlight is that in an interview, Sam Altman, the founder of ChatGPT, was talking about this movie, Her. If you guys have watched this, you know what I'm talking about. It talks about a man falling in love with a woman, but actually it's an artificial intelligence. And this is happening because now when you are talking to ChatGPT, it has persona, it has a voice. It starts to answer the questions that only you ask. So all of a sudden people are blurring the boundary. You don't realize that you're relying more and more emotionally, but also for a daily task on just one model. There are many AI models. This is just the most famous one. And technology is not all the same. They are not all ready. So this is a chart from NASA. NASA, when they're doing all this learning about rocket launch, they categorize the technology into 9 levels. So it's called the technology readiness level. Goes from level 1 all the way to level 9. So level 1 means it's an idea, it is something that is principle, it's the idea of a principle. And then they go over to the research, and then they try it over and over until it is like, okay, this is ready. Technology is ready, they launch. So technology is the same. There's a lot of variation of technology. So every time when you hear something, ask yourself, what level of technology readiness is that? Even though if it comes to the market. Because technology also goes through product development. There's a lot of technology that they try it and said, okay, we have proof of concept. Then they try and say, okay, this is really good. They get some investment. And then they try, let's do prototyping. And then they prototype the product. And then they say, let's pilot to see the use case. Then they create a pilot. And then that's when they say, okay, this is ready. Let's do an MVP, minimum viable product, and test it out. And then they go to the market. Technology is also a business. Be aware. Because a lot of these cases, people are testing it, but we don't know the application, we don't know the intention. This is an example. So technology goes through product development. This is an example of technology readiness level for machine learning. So where they start, the first principle, they start to do a research, and then they say, okay, this is a proof of principle. We know this is going to be what it looks like. They develop the system, they create a proof of concept, and then they try to apply and adjust the system all the way to mission ready and deploy. So these are the level of technology readiness that they have to go through in a product development. But technology also may be hyped. So this is a very interesting chart from, it's called the Gartner hype chart. Whenever they introduce a new technology, remember blockchain, remember all this very interesting technology, it raised expectation over time. People are very excited about it. But it goes on to a point where it gets inflated because people start to realize the use case is not very good. We don't really need it. And then it starts to go down in the trough of disillusionment, and that's where the business starts to look at proper use case, what the market needs. And then they will quickly go up. So be aware, technology is also hyped. And if you overlay that to technology adoption lifecycle, any new technology that comes, the first people that adopt them are called the innovators, and then the early adopters, and then you go over to early majority, late majority, and laggards. There is a chasm here. Because if it is adopted by innovator, they go until a moment where it is a product market fit. If they do a product market fit, then the technology will launch and it will be adopted. If not, technology dies. And last but not least, not all technology are born equal. Technology values are not equal. Technology from Europe are focused a lot on privacy and regulation. Europe are championing GDPR, privacy data protection, talks about what technology does to humanity, to the people. Whereby American technology company are talking about market-driven. We need to allow market to decide our innovation. And China is about control and strategy. So technology from these companies reveal, in a way, the value. So it's very important when you look at technology, look at the value that it stands behind. So we are moving from 4th, but actually there's a discussion that we need to move to 5th. And 5th means technology needs to have a mission. Technology needs to have a purpose. You need to look at, with greater emphasis on human-machine collaboration. It's about working with human. It's about using technology to solve social and environmental challenge. But ultimately, technology in now the 5th industrial revolution should be human-centric, is highly customizable, and it should be sustainable. And technology needs to serve that purpose. This is an economic model. This is by an economist, Kate Raworth. Amsterdam recently adopted this principle in deciding the economic model of development in Amsterdam. Basically, it talks about any business model, technology or not, needs to serve the foundation, needs to serve to build the social foundation. Needs to have good water, food, health, education, income, and so on. And it cannot go above the ceiling of the ecological ceiling. So you cannot go beyond what the earth can provide you. So if the business and economic model is operating between this, these are the type of business economic model we should support. Therefore, the same with technology. And Japan, as you might know, is advanced in so many things, right? In demographic especially. So Japan recently, this is 2016, not so recent, but they said that technology should serve society 5.0 because people that they said that technology should be serving the people, not the other way around. So they're looking more into robotics to serve the older generations. The workforce is declining. They need to focus more on robotics as well. And new services and technological services also need to look into the health of people, improving their health. So that's quite interesting when the government is saying we are supporting and actively investing in technology that serves or built society 5.0. And a bit of turn, I want to share with you Amsterdam. So we are based in Amsterdam. And in Amsterdam, the city of Amsterdam is very innovative and looking at the next agenda. So City of Amsterdam doesn't buy technology, doesn't just say Cisco or all this company come in and sell. No, Amsterdam is very clear of what technology they're looking for. And these are the innovation agenda of Amsterdam. It's about creating broader prosperity. It's about creating the circular economy. Amsterdam is one of the strongest pioneers of circular economy in the city. It's about democratization, giving power to the people. It's about digital city, digital security, sustainability, health, mobility, sport, and trust. This is interesting because people are wary about technology. Once you adapt that, you need to gain trust from people to adapt the technology. And to do that, we work with the City of Amsterdam. So there are many channels of how they implement technology. One of them is through this institute. It's called AMS, Amsterdam Institute for Advanced Metropolitan Solution. Is an institute that is a combination of MIT, TU Delft, and Wageningen, where they bring forward researcher, stakeholder in the industry and the city to come and talk about what are the problems to solve and how to solve the problem with innovation. So these are their target. They're looking at technology and innovation on smart urban mobility, urban energy, climate resilience, metropolitan food system, responsible urban digitization, and again, circularity. And the way they do this, there is a plot of land that used to be the marine, owned by the marine in the city of Amsterdam. And that's where AMS is there. And they have a big area where they test and try technology. So sensors, and they need to comply with a lot of rigorous regulation, but this is where they test all of them. So they test all of these type of things. And if you're in Amsterdam, go visit them. It's quite interesting to see. And this is the knowledge I share with you. I hope that you learn a little bit about it, but I also want to show you what we do, what we're trying to push the boundary. So I work with clients. I work with great clients around the world who are talking about pushing the boundary. So one of the interesting clients in Korea, we work with the Hyundai Development Board. I work with one of the biggest developers in Detroit City that works with Ford Innovation. So it is a different stakeholder that I work with. I work with developers, I work with technology owner, and I work with city, and I work with academics as well. So we try in US Studio to create a new environment whereby we can talk about what can be integrated and how. So we approach it this way. We look at it from a human-centric. It has to be about human. Positive impact and experience of using it. It has to be systemic. It has to be big system change. We don't talk about small things that affect only for 2 years, 5 years. We need to talk about long-term change. And it has to be strategic, which means we're talking about changes, stakeholder management, and all of this process. And for the time of being a short, I can only talk a little bit about health and mobility. So just a few examples on this. So the first one is health. UN Studio has been focused on health. We have been obsessed with health. So let's talk about how we can create a healthy outcome. Health as an outcome for the project that we design and cities that we design. If you're looking at health of the future, this is a trend that's happening in Netherlands. So the aging population is getting more, the life expectancy is getting higher, there are different needs. There are better health, but more diseases. Pressure in everyday life is increasing. So social pressure, the pressure is a real thing, stress and pressure. And lifestyle choices and the living environment both affects your health. Where you live affects your decisions. So these are things that we need to understand what are changing. And one of the, let's say the Dutch are looking at also the long-term aging population. Dutch says, what should we do about this? So one of the things that looking at is, this is an interesting quote. It says, add life to age and not primarily add age to life. Because you don't want to live old, but you can't really enjoy your life, right? So it's about living life. And they're looking at one of the trends about the care facilities that they want to bring healthcare closer to the people. They want to make sure people don't go to the hospital. So decentralize, bring the services to you. They are very patient focused. So it's not just about giving you the service, but it's adapting to you and your need. So the business model of these services are changing. It's about making you deciding, making you it's part of your decision. What you want to improve, what kind of services you want is your choice. And it's moving away from complexity, no more bureaucratic, make it easy. So these are the trends that is changing as well. One of the projects that we did in Milan was quite interesting. It's a big development in north of Milan, whereby there's a hospital in the middle. And we come in and we say, is it just building around the hospital, or are we building health as a holistic journey for the people who live there? That includes the hospital. So we look at what is the future of hospital. We look at what are the services that's decentralized from the hospital. What of these services should be implemented in the development? And it's beyond just these kind of ecosystem of health, but also social health. What can you build that allow people to communicate and live very excited, wake up in the morning and very excited to talk to your neighbor? So all of these are part of the integration for us to think about the strategy to move forward and design the master plan. You can see that this image of the master plan, these are all decentralized, but what we want to show you is that in the way we think, we created 3 scale of moment that will continuously change your decision in your health, because whatever you decide affects your health. What you eat, whether you go to jogging or not, to talk to the neighbor, these are choices. And you can nudge people when you have the touch point, either digital or physical touch point. So these are the scale: health at home, health in the neighborhood, and nature. So these are the scale whereby we think about possible services, what are the things we need to build in, and put it all baked into the master plan. And another interesting thing is we work with Philips. Philips, as you know, they no longer do light bulb. They actually goes over to Philips Health. So all the most advanced hospital machine are actually mostly from Philips. And their innovation team work with us to talk about touch point in a day and how they can create innovative product by embedding those touch points within the house. When you wake up, when you go to the bathroom, when you cook, and so on. So we went through with them on all these use cases of people with chronic disease, newly motherhood, new parents, happy and aging population, how their lifestyle and traits happen in the home. So it's quite interesting. We can't share with you the findings, but as you can see, it is a full mapping on the day of their life, and especially psychologically, which is a moment to make them make certain decisions. Those are quite interesting. And obviously also into ideating with one of the biggest retailer, grocery of Netherlands, because it's not only selling grocery and food, it's also integrating things like pharmacy, digital healthcare facilities, and healthy choices of food into the grocery. Because in Netherlands, almost all of us go to grocery every day. So that's where you can also influence people in making healthy choices. And the last one is mobility. We also work with Shell. So Shell is moving away from fossil fuel. They're looking into electric car charging and what are these electric car charging mobility hubs they can build. So it's quite interesting that a company like Shell is also going into neighborhood and say, can we change different neighborhood and different mobility needs? And how can we do that? So as a designer, we think about it from a programmatic perspective, but also from architectural perspective, the modularity. And the last one to show here is, this is quite interesting. Has anyone here been to Amsterdam? Have you guys been to Heineken Experience? Yes. Okay. Our office is down from Heineken Experience, and you probably don't know this, but that street is one of the most heavily car trafficked streets with the worst air pollution to Amsterdam standard. And we were tired of it. We said, we are living in this street, but it's one of the artery of the city. So we collaborated with the Rijksmuseum, the biggest museum in Amsterdam, with Heineken, because Heineken is our neighbor. Also, Netherlands Bank is our neighbor. And we say we are residents of the street. We need to do something. So we actually we created a project called the Green Mile. And it is a bottom-up proposal, with community to try to change that street. That's what we're trying to do. But what I want to show here is that we also lean out to business owner. So this is one of the interesting proposal that came that talk about creating mobility hub and logistic hub for the neighborhood. And how can we integrate that into our street? So technology implementation could also be from bottom up. And I want to leave you with one thing. What I will talk about is more like from a human-centered perspective, right? So we always talk about the human. But what we do now is taking to the next level. We want to understand you as a human because I experience it very differently from all of you. So one of the techniques we're looking at it right now is point of view. So basically, we use eye tracker. So eye tracking device that measures what you see. We also use a GSR, galvanized skin response, that measures stress from your skin. We observe and we have interview and we run this experiment in Austin and also in LAX, in the airport. Basically to understand how people experience the environment. What are they looking at? How far are they looking at something? If they get excited or did they get stressed? Because the journey is never one single moment. It's a continuous moment. We need to understand how someone from the wheelchair experiences the environment. Some mothers with kids have experienced the environment. Older ladies who doesn't use the phone, how they experience the environment. They all experience the environment very differently. So this is an example of a dashboard that we created. So we looked, what you see here, the red dot is what they look at. You see a trace of what they look at. We measure how long they look at certain things. Is it out of excitement or is it out of confusion? And reasons why they look at the environment. And then based on that, we look at the scale of GSR, how stressed they were. So based on that, we're able to understand much better the implication of digital system, digital product, or physical space, and how these can allow us to make tweaks that has much more impact, better impact on the user. There are a lot of data sets that we can get out of it. We can talk about it later, but one of it is about searching for information. So searching for information is both physical space and digital realm. We are now crossing the realm much easier. And imagine if you have ChatGPT, you're constantly crossing the realm way more. So we need to understand the threshold and then see what of these environments we can keep in the physical space and what of these we can outsource into digital space. This conversation is quite interesting because we do that with shopping malls. So shopping malls are in Europe are looking at this, what we should be doing, what is the impact, because we're talking about brand touch points. When can I have a proper brand touch point? And I want to leave with last statement. In a technological world, this term is used a lot. Do no harm, in a way that you evaluate your technology. I find it weird when you say a technology that has to say do no harm. Because in reality, I think it's about do good for humanity, do good for the planetary. It has to have a purpose. So I leave this with you guys. What does this mean for you guys? Because you guys are the absolute, like growing like mad. This is a pivotal moment. What can we do? What applies? And what does it mean for you? Thank you.
Wow, that's pretty exciting stuff. And I think that sort of the importance of that CTBUH, urban habitat. We don't focus enough on that, and I think that's happening now. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in India to leapfrog from the messages from the developed countries, because, as you say, man, we're just starting in India, a lot of things, and starting from scratch, and there's huge opportunities for our profession in terms of leapfrogging, and with the help of international consultants. That's the very purpose of why we have got the Indian context and the overseas context. Okay, as I said at the introduction, that we can't do without sponsors. We've had 5 sponsors, but our main sponsor for today was Cyber Ice. So I'd like to call on their representative, who's going to tell us a little bit about what they do. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't get your name. So.
No, it's Sri.
Sure. Okay. Welcome. Thank you very much. No, I've got it.
Okay. Good evening, and once again, I've been a very big fan of CTBUH, and today standing here and introducing myself or speaking about the country, I feel very proud. When Gautam reached out to us, or we speak quite often, and we spoke about the topic of the day, which was a kaleidoscope of design. How do you look at it? I went and asked him, I'm a manufacturer, and what am I going to contribute? Or how can I change, or what can I do? An architect can look at it differently, but I'm a manufacturer. He said, Srini, it's how you look at things, and just share what you feel. ESG has been globally a very big discussion, and for SideRise, for ESG, when it comes to ESG, Joe, we do work with the UN strategy for ESG. For us, it starts with building a safer future and giving the occupants a very safe environment to work and live. And especially with tall buildings, with so many fires occurring around the world, I think it's very important that for SideRise, we contribute towards building a safer future. Again, when Gautam reached out, it went back to 1994 when I was in Chembur here in Bombay, where I had to do a kaleidoscope for my project in school. I went to a local guy, cut some mirrors, put it together in a triangle, tried to put in some glass bangles and get some design. And today when I Googled it, I got two images. So one was very simple. When I looked at it, it gave me a good picture. It was easy to understand what it is. But as soon as I look deeper and put in more colors or throw in more confusion, it takes more time to understand. So we as SideRise are a manufacturer for fire protection. And what I'm going to do is to see as an architect or a developer or a contractor, we can simplify things and build a safer future. And that's what I'm going to try and convey the message in the next 10 or 15 minutes. CTBUH, again, as SideRise, we have been a members of CTBUH since 2016 or 2018. But we are one of the top tier sponsors, because it's not because of saying we are proud of it, it's because how much we can share, get information, data from CTBUH. By raise of hands, how many of us have visited the CTBUH website in the last 2 months? Okay. 6 months? More hands going up. Okay. It's one of the best. The Skyscaper Center is one of the best websites. If you can try and spend time and navigate through it. For us, SideRise and CTBUH, we have around 266 projects that we have listed, and we have worked globally and listed in that as one of the contributors. We have 16 projects from India, which is there. So it's a good point of reference for us. And when we talk about awards, this is one of the 5 awards which was in the Singapore event, which again, there was a contribution from SideRise for these events. But the London event, we have 15 projects already which has got Excellence Award, and we have 38 projects that are nominated to get awarded. So again, the data that you get on the CTBUH website is, you can work, it works fantastic, and you have to spend time to understand and navigate it. I'm not saying it's a difficult website, but it is kind of difficult, but when you get to it, it can be easier. So anyway, I've had that conversation with Xavier and the people there back in Chicago. Anyway, so I've used this particular slide from the NBS, which is one of the source which is very popular in the UK. The end use, the person who's going to occupy the building is important. We all work hard for that particular individual who's putting his money, investment to be on a safer building, give us good environment, sustainable environment, and everybody in the chain, from the designer, from the client, from the specifier, from the contractor, it plays very important role to make sure that the end user gets the best environment to live and work. So what do we see in India? I mean, people come and say, Srini, we have a sprinkler in the building, so I don't need to do anything. The fire doesn't bother us. We have a sprinkler. We have always had a war with pricing. We have always had people coming and saying, oh, we have been doing this for last 10 years. We have been doing this forever. So our people saying this is the way I do. So that is one of the biggest challenges that we see or hear or discuss. But this is changing. And the next 5 to 8 slides will tell you how India has evolved, and the word leapfrog is the key word here. So I just wanted to share one of the technical takeaway that when we walk out of the room. As an industry, we speak about a reaction to fire, fire rated, resistance to fire, stopping the fire, fire rated. So I just want a technical takeaway today when you step out of the room, something that we have taken. And one of the points is reaction and resistance. And when we are speaking about the fire, these are the only two terminologies that technically we can use. And I sit within the Fire and Life Safety Committee within the CTBUH, which is headed by Gary Strong. And we wanted to send this message strong to all the audiences and people who are part of the chapters, multiple chapters and members, because it's very key. So reaction to fire is how a product reacts when it comes in contact with fire. Very simple. A resistance to fire, for example, if you use a wood, you light it, it will burn. But you can use the same wood to put a fire-rated door. So it's very key that a fire-rated system or a fire-resistant system is it works as a system. You can put components that will react to fire, but it can resist the fire from moving from one zone to another zone. So this is a key terminology I think is important, fundamental point that we can take away, and we cannot say that an aluminum composite panel is fire rated. There is nothing like that. We cannot say wood is fire rated until it is treated and works as a system. So we use stone wool in one of our key products that is there for fire. The reason why stone wool is it's been out in the ages. We melt stone and use it for various applications, but stone can give a good fire resistance property, thermal, fire repellence, water repellency, vapor permeability is very good, sound and acoustic. So stone wool has become a very, very, very common product in the construction industry today. So what I'm going to cover is this key topic when we speak about facades and tall buildings. Facades is basically, when you Google it, it's the envelope of the building, how it is covered, and what you use. It's glass basically. So the key component or the key challenge here in a high-rise building is how fire spreads between the edge of the slab and the beautiful facade that we see from outside. So that's a key component and a key location where a fire would leapfrog from one floor to another floor, and it's important that we restrict the passage of fire. So one of the challenges that we see how fire could spread from one floor to another floor, or it could spread from outside. So these are key things that when we go higher and higher and higher, the person who's on the highest location should feel safest so that he can evacuate. So the spread of fire is slowed and he has a safe path to exit the building. So this comes to an important point for the National Building Code. What does our National Building Code say? So the existing version of 2016 is a good document. It's a good reference document, good guide document, how we can construct it. But it has not moved, it has not evolved with how the global codes and strategies and fire codes have changed. They have given good definitions, but it has been very open in relation to subjects where they have not told how this test does not relate to how you use it. So that has been the biggest challenge when we sit, and we work with committees in India, which is the Bureau of Indian Standard, have a CED 36 committee who have put together a very good standard now, which they have taken global codes and standards, and they have utilized two major standards of ASTM and EN and put together a standard which is called as IS 18190. So it's very important on a high-rise building today that there is the Bureau of Indian Standard has released a code has released a standard to say you guys need to test the product on how you use the product on projects. And this particular standard is not yet included in the in the Indian National Building Code, but which is under revision. So the 2025 version is expected to have this standard. So we have already seen lots of buildings or specifiers working towards utilizing this standard. It's the reason why I said India has leapfrogged. This particular standard has been twice stringent to the nearest ASTM E2307 standard. So they have moved 2 steps ahead of what the other 2 international standards are, which is very good for a country which is having so many high-rise buildings under construction. So again, movement is very important. The product characteristics is important, because when we go higher and higher, the movement of the building or the wind sway of the building could be higher or could be more. So the tolerance had to be more. So under tall buildings, there are requirements, and the products that fill between the floor slab and the facade has to move together. So that's a key component. So the IS 19190 standard, which Bureau of Indian Standard has released, has said you need to do the product suitable to construct high-rise buildings. So you need to test for it. So it's again, it's not even in the ASTM or the EN standard, it's not yet mandated, but the Bureau of Indian Standard, the national code here, has mandated that particular requirement. This is how a test is done. This is not a IS 19190. The lab here is ready, and we will be, there are product manufacturers who are now testing towards that. So we test it as a full system now. And then the protection of the spandrel is also coming into an important discussion, because you need the spandrel panel to remain in place on a high-rise building for the perimeter barrier to stay in place. These are some images from the test. We have simplified the installation so that we eliminate the combustible components of the products in the test and a fire test. We would be very happy. So we hosted a CTBUH delegation to our fire lab in the UK, but the lab here in India is getting ready. So once it is ready, I think to the committee here or to the chapter here, it could be an opportunity that we invite architects to witness a fire test on how a facade test is done for a tall building. A good opportunity that we can discuss. Again, just a few images of how it is done. What are the standards? The challenges of architects here, saying we want a full glass from floor to floor. We want light to come in. But when we immediately look at how it is going to be compartmentalized and how can we stop the fire, it becomes a question. So we need to work around the architectural intent and match the fire compartmentation. So that's going to be interesting to see how we will do it together. Again, lots of systems available in the market. There are lots of human interference that we can eliminate. So, but as compliance is key. So again, just an animation of how the challenges of fire, how it starts, it spreads, the glass breaks, and the fire would leapfrog. But with the spandrel panel, again, which it stops and restricts the fire from passage for a tall building, which is very important. one of the images which my colleague always keeps telling me, Srini, we buy cars and we decide on what is the fire safety of the car, how safe it is to drive the car, how safe it is for our family to be riding that car. But when we are doing building construction, tall buildings, facades, today there are lots of compromise that we do from the stage where it is specified to the finished project. There are materials that are compromised in cost or value engineering, and why do we do that is a very big question that I'm asking us together as an audience. And one of the images, Home Alone, classic image, when I say kaleidoscope and when I look at it, when I zoom through it, I can get some clarity of image when I focus on it. But as soon as I move it out, it should not give me confusion. So this is what I see. If we don't have clarity of information, knowledge, data, I think from where the project has started, conceptualized, and how it is completed, we may end up looking at it this way. So I think it's important that we spend time, we look at it rightly. So last couple of slides. I don't have a timer here. One of the biggest challenges that we have had in India globally is the spread of fire through cladding elements. We with CTBUH in the Fire and Life Safety Committee have repeatedly written journals, white papers, which is available on the CTBUH website. Gary Strong is chairing it. So the cladding elements are there. We have said we need to use a better reaction to fire product, but also now it has come, lots of projects in India have started to use compartmentalization, which means you use your rain screen principles to water to drain, but it is also important that you compartmentalize, and if there is a fire, the fire doesn't spread and it protects the asset. So that's again a key development and direction in which the architects, consultants, facade contractors are working towards. Again, a test which is required in India, an NFPA 285 test. People think when we use stone cladding, everything is good because it's not combustible, but the stone is being held by a 2 mm aluminum. And if the aluminum is exposed to fire, the stone is going to fall. So it's just an image to show how without compartmentation, a stone cladding works, and with compartmentation, how it would work. So again, technology is driving. So we have started to introduce QR codes and apps, but for side race, it's AR and VR that we are introducing to give more data to people who are reviewing the products, designing the projects, to see how a component used on a building construction would evolve and how it would look when it is finished. So we are trying to give more data in very earlier stage. So it's a theme to go beyond. So currently our message is collectively, let's go beyond testing. Don't only look at the test data, but see what has been used, how it has been used, how it has been tested and related to the project. See how we go beyond technical support. We should not only hear what we are listening or what we are being told. We should focus more on understanding what and review it from our end. And lastly, it's not only the product. It's more than a product. So let's go beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. You don't get too many people that sponsor functions that give a good technical talk. Really appreciate that. And it's a hot topic. Globally. And I think the biggest challenge for the fire industry is regulatory bodies and codes. They're very prescriptive, and it's a challenge. Okay, we're going to move on now to our third speaker, Carl Wadia from Hafiz, contractor architect. I think Carl is well known in Mumbai and India. He's worked on a lot of tall buildings. Hafiz contractor, arguably the founders of tall building design. They've done a lot of amazing towers in India. So Carl, we look forward to your talk. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank CTBUH for inviting us. It's a great pleasure. Personally, have visited many CTBUH conferences, and I think the chairman said in the beginning that my journey also started with CTBUH only with the simple desire of wanting to gain knowledge, and we still continue to be part of the CTBUH journey. And with that, I'm going to try and make today's presentation. So while my colleague Apurva did talk about low-rise development, which I think is extremely important, given that we are in a you know yeah, no, okay, super. So given that we are in tall, a tall building conference, and with people from the industry of tall buildings, I suppose what gives us the right to be here is that we have been involved in several tall buildings across India and one or two in the world as well. So this is just a quick summary of some of the work we've completed and that we are continuing to work on and complete. I think the journey beyond 300 in India is still taking place. There's one building which is done, that's the Minerva Towers, the second from the left, and there are many more being designed. And I think the point I'm trying to make is that we are still figuring out how to design tall buildings for India, because what is designed for the rest of the world, we realized the hard way, is not what is appropriate to design in India. What are our weather conditions? How much glass do we need? What is the building orientation? And for that, I'm going to run through a couple of stories of tall building design. In the last 15 years, it's all been a big blur. We've been designing buildings. There are too ambitious, some which are less ambitious. So this is one I'm going to talk about, is the Island City Center in Mumbai. In fact, this project was completed in collaboration with SSA Architects. Anuja is not here in the room. It was a very interesting journey of how to do one of the first tall buildings that happened in India. And what you see is the completed photograph, but what you don't see is the journey behind this project. And I'll just try and reflect upon it a bit. So these are the completed pictures. So this project started with an extremely ambitious oval-shaped building that wanted to be 288 meters. The client was willing to spend lots of money and do lots of things. And then there was a little shake-up in the real estate industry, and we had to completely redesign the whole building with the same brief. And if you see the statistics on the screen, I think the final statistic at the bottom of the page, we have the engineers also in this room, Bureau Happert, who designed this building. And we had to redesign this whole building to go from 11.3 kg per square feet to 6.1 kg per square feet. And that journey sort of took us from a building that looked like that on the left to a building that looked like that on the right. And while we still love the building, when you're part of an old journey, there are certain things that you carry as baggage, and you hope that you would have done it in a certain way. But what this project did do for us, it taught us how to do tall buildings. It's probably one of the first projects in India with a proper central core and with point columns all around. And then the second project, the second building in the same project also had a similar story. If you see the statistic at the bottom of the screen, this also went from a 10.1 kg per square foot building to 7.5 kg per square foot building. And we had to achieve this while keeping all the parameters in check. So I suppose if you look at both the designs, in tall buildings, unlike say in low-rise buildings, you have to temper the architectural aspiration significantly when you're working in an environment that is so cost sensitive like India. And we learned that the hard way. And what you're looking at is all stuff designed back in 2009, which is about 16 years ago. And that building has been beautifully completed now by SSA architects, collaborators on the project. These are some of the references of what was the promise of the building and what was finally delivered. I'll move to the next story. This is a story of currently the tallest building in India, which is the Minerva Towers. It's a snapshot of the CTBUH website. Again, a fantastic story, from a perspective to a completed building. And what's interesting here is the building was designed under a different code of regulations that existed in the city of Bombay, which was known as the DCR 1991. And somewhere in 2013-14, the entire code and the regulation changed. So if you see this building to the right hand side, what is finally completed, you have a nice healthy building at the bottom, or a fat building at the bottom, and then you have this skinny thing on the top, because all the cheating and all the chori, as we call it in India, chori is theft. All the chori had to be removed from the building. So here you have chori, no chori on the top. And all of the free areas which we were getting, whatever got designed, got approved, all of that had to be corrected mid-course. The interesting thing about this building is that I actually started working on this building in 1999, 2000, sorry, when I was an intern at Hafiz Contractor's office. It was supposed to be a hotel. And I went away, did my master's, worked in KPF London, came back, and that's the first project I started again on, and we completed it last year. So this is a career project, along with a lot of other stuff, but it's finally been completed. And I suppose if you want to come to India, you'll have to figure out resilience. It's very, very important. That's the circulation at the ground floor. That's the E-deck level. It's the first time 15 meter stilts were done. The first time the concept of mega columns was discussed with 14 meter spans. And all of this thinking was done back in 2009 and actually executed. So that's what you see is the plan of the bottom half of the building up to the 51st floor. The plan on the top half of the building on the up to the 91st floor. And in fact, this building doesn't even have 91 floors. They start counting from 26 to make it sound like it's a 90-story building. That's the core. At 200 meter height, we had to introduce an elevator out of nowhere because the central part of the lobby would have been counted in FAR. And that would have taken out a few floors. So we had to construct that elevator from the foundation all the way up, starting at 200 meters. And the building has a massive bell truss, again at about 155 meters in the center of the building, 159 meters. And this is again a very, very intriguing story, one of lots of learning, and I would say an extremely difficult and tedious project. But the learnings from it and what we've taken away from it is something that we will cherish forever. This slide was actually prepared by my friend Gautam,
While we've done 300-meter tall buildings, we've also done 300-meter long buildings. And let me tell you, the 300-meter long building is 300 times more complicated to design than the 300-meter tall building. So the story 3 is of the Venezia Towers, built very quickly. Sterling Engineering was the structural engineer. Extremely low budget. I would not say low budget, but a project done at a time when the cost or the sale price of flats was so less that there was no money to spend on anything. So literally we had to use paint, no plaster. We had to restrict the window wall ratio to about 35-40% to make the project affordable, and still try and do a sort of respectable high-rise building that actually sat on top of a huge bus parking depot that housed 180 buses. And on top of that sat this building with its landscape podium, etc. So that's the extruded isonometric of the project. It had a core which is not an ideal core for a tall building, but that's just how the flats had to be oriented to get the east-west views, because everything north-south was a terrible view and would not sell at the appropriate price. So that's again the only place we really did some architectural expression was on the terrace, where we did MS steel trellis, and that was quite some fun. Some more images of how the building stacked up. We tried to do a biophilic podium facade by using warmer colors. That's the material palette that got finalized in the building, a simple gray granite used in 4 or 5 different material finishes that gave you that reading, terracotta fins and aluminium fins. That's the imagery at the E-deck level. Again, wherever given the opportunity, we wanted to bring in some warmth and water. And finally, the terrace at 220 meters on the top, we were able to do something nice. These are some images of the buildings against the backdrop of the old mills of Mumbai. And as we all know in this room, slowly and slowly all the mills are being redeveloped into taller buildings. Story number 4 is a project known as Rustamji Crown. This one is also interesting. It went again through the same 2 DCRs. This one also went through 2 different owners. So it started with the DB Realty Group. It started as 2 towers being 369 meters in height, and finally there are 2 towers of 255 which are built. Aluplex is here, the guys who did the windows, and the 3rd tower is 220 meters. It's again a fantastic journey of a residential building weaved in with a public parking which is for the city as a generator of FSI, and how do we separate all of those functions while still trying to create a kind of a nice project with good views and all of that. So I'll just skip through the circulation. The drop-offs of the building had to be internal because all the external edges were used for the public parking. 2 lobbies between the Tower A and Tower B, the Tower C lobby. We had these fantastic 40-meter stilts in which, at that time in the old DCR, we were permitted not to put flats, and still we would get an exemption from the FAR. And we wanted to use these stilts to create these beautiful live gardens. So what you actually see is an image on the bottom, which is the proposal. And what you see on the right hand side are these massive cotton steel 4-meter tall planters. So each of these planters are about 3/4 the height of this room, which are strapped onto these 3-meter diameter columns to house trees with drip irrigation and all of that. And that's an old picture. The one now actually has the planters in it. And in the Tower B, we created this fantastic kids area where we would create a tree house and all of that in the same design concept. These are some images of the stepped, the drawings of the step podium that were presented at the time of designing it. And I'm also going to show you some images of the completed work. So we've used the levels of the podium, try to create something which is a little more natural rather than very hard edges. That's the club. The club is kind of sunken below the podium, so we don't lose any green area to a club structure. Story number 5 is 25 South, which is a building which is coming up very close to the ocean. So what you see is the reference, sorry, the proposal image, which actually won us the bid. But unfortunately, this building also had to be curtailed because the regulations at the time did not allow cantilevers more than 2 meters. And we still have these lovely arguments with our structural engineers in the city that, why do you guys support such codes when Singapore can do 65 meters? We are still debating 2 and 3 meters in India. So this design had to be ditched. We obviously had to design 3 towers that face the ocean, and that's the final build. The first building is done. Mind you, no cantilever more than 2 meters. And we did some interesting window systems where we incorporated, a ventilated system within the window. We used a Rensin blind, the image you see on the right. The 200-meter tower had to be floated to create the entrance drop-off at the bottom. And using the angle to receive, for the reinforcement to come into the column, we actually corniced the girder in a way that, we were able to create some interest. And the client did need a lot of convincing as to why he would want to pay for this kind of structural transfer. So you can see this one tower actually has both sides of the tower completely suspended with only completely transferred with only the core going through the center. So we had to create a series of diagrams to demonstrate, and somehow they bought it. And that's how the 2 massive shear walls that hold up the entire building are actually transferred through an X girder with a cornicing element into 4 columns of 2.7 meter diameter each. And now everyone is very thrilled about it. And whenever we talk of transfers, we show these pictures saying that it should be done and it can be done. That's the entrance drop off. And to create this space, we have to transfer all of those columns. Otherwise, we won't be able to enter this space. That's the visuals of how the club would feel like. The club level, we wanted a completely different aesthetic. No concrete, no steel, but steel encased with some natural wood. And these are the actual completed pictures of the club with the pool. And we've used a lot of stone at the deck level. And it's come out quite, we're very proud of this project. This is some night shots. That's the second tower, which is under construction. Story number 6 is Ocean Towers. We are collaborating with Foster and Partners on this project. There are 2 towers of 273 and 250. And in classic FNP style, the outriggers, everything are well expressed. Again, Sterling Engineering is the structural consultant here. It's a completely aluminum clad building. And we're very proud to say that we've had a huge role to play in actually designing these buildings along with Foster and Partner, and they've also given us the credit for it, and now we're trying our best to execute it. The foundations are dug. It's a very deep, 27-meter deep foundation, and I believe in 2.5 to 3 years we'll be done with this project as well. This is a project I can't mention. No international architect, it's just us. It's a building coming up in Mumbai, 265 meters. It's on Worli. So those who know the city can guess the rest. It's another hotel coming up in Mumbai. And lastly, I would like to talk about a project which is not high-rise, but has something to do with urban habitat and urban development. This is the replanning of the entire E block in BKC, for those who know it. E block is the one with all the old buildings of SBI and all of that. And we worked very closely with MMRDA to make the whole of E block into a one-way circulation with underground driveways, etc. And part of the brief was also to connect E block to the Maharashtra Nature Park, which is across the mangroves on the other side of Dharavi. So this is a complete urban renewal plan, including a public plaza. We've elevated the entire ground plane of E block, with lots and lots of office buildings, banking areas, food and beverage, an iconic building, a theater, along with this beautiful bridge that crosses the Methi. And there was a lot of talk of not doing more than 2 or 3 columns in the Methi because of the mangroves. So we used that as a reference to actually create the design of the bridge. And we did not want people to walk in a straight line. So it's like a serpentine bridge, and the structure goes the other way to hold the whole bridge. And part of the brief that we set for ourselves is not to make these buildings come and sit on the ground, but rather elevate them so that we create a ground plane that presently doesn't exist in BKC. So we set these principles for ourselves that only half the height of the building can be the complete floor plate. 1/3 of the height of the building has to be tapered. And we worked very closely with the structural engineers to figure out the actual system of how to move from a 11 by 11 to a 22 by 22 grid. And we created all these fantastic diagrams to convince the authorities that this is the right way to do it without actually floating the building. So that little education that we had through our structural engineers, we tried to interpret it in the right way in structure. And then as we go back into the basement, we reintroduced the 11 by 11 grid. But what that did for us is it allowed us to elevate all of the buildings and create this wonderful plaza that people can move up and down. That's the image of the bridge. We are architect office contractor. We're a multidisciplinary practice, and we pretty much do everything there is to do. We have a saying. I mean, Mr. Contractor has a saying where he likes all the architects in the office to do all kinds of projects, no specialization. And if time permits, just run a quick reel. In audio. Apurva mentioned we do a lot of schools, universities. They actually love that work more than the high rises. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. That was fantastic. I think just sort of reminds me about the CTBUH registering tall buildings, and I'm not convinced that all the buildings are registered in the CTBUH, and I think all the consultants and architects have a role there to encourage the clients, and if the client, with the client's permission, you do the work. Because it's good advertising for the consultants, but I'm pretty convinced that we've got a lot more 150 metre plus buildings in India than what's been registered. Girish.
In fact, CTBUH India has taken upon itself, and all consultants, architects and consultants, please cooperate with our representatives. We have appointed 2 or 3 volunteers from CTBUH who will contact you people, and please give them all the data of your own buildings so that we can update all the data on the skyscraper center. So please remember this, our volunteers will reach out to you.
Thanks. Okay, now our last speaker, Tom. Welcome to Mumbai, and as was previously discussed, UN studios are based in Netherlands, and that's probably the last place I think about in terms of tall buildings. And I recall in 1990 something, the World Congress, CTBUH World Congress, was actually held in Amsterdam. That was my first trip to Amsterdam, and I felt, what the hell is a CTBUH conference being held in Amsterdam for? But I certainly enjoyed it. It was a great conference, and we look forward to it. And they've done some amazing tall buildings, and I think there's a few Dutch architects that have done lots of tall buildings around the world, where they haven't really done too many tall buildings within their own country. Okay, look forward to your talk.
So, first of all, very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting us. We had a very interesting week here in Mumbai, meeting a lot of interesting people and companies. Very immersive experience of the city. First of all, I can confirm that Holland is very flat. It's one. I can also confirm that there are not so many high-rises in the Netherlands. So, but still, yeah, for me, my first interest in high-rise was woken when I started working. My first job was in Shanghai, in China, and it was quite a life-changing experience in a way, because it was the moment I decided to fully focus on architecture instead of real estate. It got me thinking about the topic of high-rise buildings, but then also in relationship to density in the city, and also the livability. So back then in Shanghai, we were planning, or part of the planning work for the World Expo 2010, and the theme of the expo was Better City, Better Life. So I think that connects to my topic, which is a vision on life in the city. And although we come from very different backgrounds, I think we can talk about design strategies as architects that we can utilize, first of all, to collaborate, but also to make better architecture, better buildings, and a better city. So just a very short background on the UN Studio. You might know us already, maybe not. So good to say that we're from Amsterdam. That's our head office. Worldwide, we have about 400 people. UN Studio stands for United Net Studio. So the idea was always to create a network of professionals in different disciplines where we could have a focus on architecture, but work with a whole range of people, and also challenge the current ideas and bring the profession forward. So this is a thought that our founder Ben van Berkel had, and it's still very valid, because every time we start a project, we try to bring together the best team and challenge the stereotypes. So within the studio, as you've already mentioned with Ren, we are part of a smaller studio called UNSX. Nowadays 50 people, and we are the true interdisciplinary studio within UN Studio, because we have a mix of people working with us that have a range of disciplines. So it's coming from strategy and the technology that was Ren was talking about. You see the richness of ideas. Actually causes me problems, Ren, because we're trying to kind of bring all the ideas into our architecture. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But yeah, we like to talk about architecture as a performative feature. And one of the things is technology. So behind the technology is research. We like to think that if we do a project successfully, that's interesting, we can integrate the research in the project, but it might be that the project also generates research. So this is our team. We usually start with strategy, master planning, architecture, but it can go down to product design, even to the door handle. So that's what we try to do, very holistic approach. And I hope to show a number of our projects today. Circle. There are also pillars that we have recently focused on. First of all, is technology, as I mentioned. How do you integrate it? So we see a lot of demand from the market, especially with the pressure in schedule and time, how to make our designs more intelligent. We look at a modular approach for buildings. We look at ways of producing building components in a smart way, sourcing them efficiently and for good price. We also look at the economics of the thing. So we have focus on project management, design to budget, we're often faced with, and we try to adhere to very strict planning principles. And then finally, in all our projects, sustainability has a focus. So we started with the different types of accreditations worldwide, and now we're implementing that in almost all of our projects. But we also noticed that sustainability is not the key to each and every solution. In the end, it's the human-centric aspect, and it's the health and well-being of people in our buildings. So I set up a presentation before I came to Mumbai, but now traversing the city and seeing how much activity there is, the energy of the city, things that go well, amazing tall buildings we see here, but also the human scale of life in the street and going through it. For me, Mumbai is one of the true mega cities. Amsterdam, we like to call the smallest big city in the world. So it's a beautiful city to live in. It really has a human scale to it. So for me, I roughly live at the center point of the circle. It's the center of the 17th century canal belt. And the city was constructed back then according to very rigorous urban planning principles. So there are three main canals which were planned as a whole and then constructed at the peak of Dutch prosperity, which was in the 17th century. So the nice thing about the city, it has a very concentric structure, and if you would walk from the one side of the circle to the other side, it would only take you 20 minutes. So it's very livable. So for me, 20 minutes is too long. I take the bike, so it's only 5 minutes. So, but it just gives you an idea of the whole human feel to it. And if I would go from my house to the office, it would be about 5 minutes. Pick up my kids, another 5 minutes, and in 5 minutes I'm home again. So that's a quality we really appreciate. Mumbai. So yeah, we had a lot of interesting meetings. So we are traversing the city left and right, and yeah, I mean by car it takes some time. We saw a lot of nice developments on the metro. Something that's also very dear to me. I worked on the Doha Metro. I won't talk about it, but just show it as a nice project. But it made me realize that, yeah, it's something you face as an urban planning challenge, but it might also be something that can inform your strategies, this Doha Metro. Because what you'll see is, say, once the metro comes online, you'll have new nodes within the city activating new life. I would expect exciting new developments near the nodes, near the stations, and I think that's a real opportunity to look at what do you create near the metro stations and how do you connect the city in different ways. Thinking about high-rise, just briefly, Project Bars in Bengaluru, it talks about lower density, but it shows first principles of how Unit Studio works. So it's about mixed use. This is my project. It's a high-rise project in Frankfurt, which I'll dive into detail. And this is another skill level. So I think, what is interesting with Hafiz, they show the different skill levels. So it's a very human level, almost the eye line. And then you have a great portfolio of tall buildings, which is the skyline. And I think what I would like to show is how we try to make a blend sometimes in projects. So trying to activate the cityscape and adding this kind of quality. So first of all, how we think in thinking projects through, we've always been very interested in connectivity and people flows, circulation. So just a short image from the Carlton Town Center. Before we even start thinking, it's just to understand, also through technology, is what's the current situation? How do people move and operate? And then along this kind of way of movement, what can we start to plan there? And I think that's something that here was done on a site-wide scale. So just to start there, and then going to a much higher density and projects we worked on, and also very much in the European context of city planning. They're quite dominating rules, I would say, especially in Germany. It's quite a rigid country, I can tell you. And when we started this project, how does it start? The city starts to determine, first of all, what kind of functions are allocated in the location, and the developer is required to make an urban competition. So just to understand, this is the central business district in the city. It's a very prime plot. The tower to the left is a very nice tower from Foster. To the right, you have further high-rise. So this is quite a high-density part of the city. And in the middle, you see our competition entry for the architectural design of 4 towers. So you have 2 office towers and you have 2 resi towers. So this is the skyline. So our proposal starts to redefine what you see on that level. But what you don't see, and what I'll dive into a little bit, is at the base of the tower. So before we started, there was essentially a very closed perimeter block dating from the rebuild after the Second World War. So it was not accessible for the general public. So it created this very kind of eerie and dead cityscape. In our urban planning, so at the master planning level, that was one of the key arguments how we were showing to bring in equality. Here you see how the CBD is very next to the inner stadt, it's inner city and the old city. Unfortunately, not much left of the original building, but you do have the urban granularity of the city, where we are trying to insert almost 230,000 square meter, so 2.3 million square feet. So yeah, how do you make this kind of connection? And for us, just a small image of the human aspect. How do you make this a very attractive place for happy people, healthy people, and then a balance between the human aspect and the sustainable aspect. So the human and the more kind of, the building as a machine. So here you see on the streetscape level how the perimeter block starts to create porous. So the arrows mainly represent pedestrian routes, and these people are guided into the block. So at the center, we create this very nice urban square. It has the scale of a historical square, and along the sides, it's kind of framed with plinth up to just before the high rise of 22 meters, and then you see the footprints of the towers appearing. You see how dense these towers are. So to the left you have 2 office towers, to the right 2 resi towers. And another claim that we made, just a very attractive green space that we started to plan on the roof. So this is fully accessible for the public. There are rooftop amenities such as bar, just space to hang out. Some of it is more restricted to the towers. From this first idea of creating 4 towers, making the block accessible, we started to shape the towers. So what you need to know about Germany is that they're not so fond of twists. So we always like to do a good twist, but Germans are really interested in how do you make a very clean geometrical system. So we decided to go for an orthogonal setup, where we allowed ourselves to have rounded corners and then also 45 degrees. So within the process of the urban planning, you allow yourself a little bit more flexibility. But going through the planning process, I'll show you some slides later on of the planning process, we really kind of made this more efficient, more rigid, and all the way up to a setup that was in a lot of detail and could go straight to factory for a lot of the components. So this is the modular aspect. Here you see a number of figures. So for us, it was a rigid location, very strict compliance. It's the largest developer in Germany. Very much about efficiency. How do we do an efficient core? How do we optimize the structure? And a huge amount of effort. So part of the challenge, the setup, is how do you work together? How do you collaborate? So for us, the tool of choice is in this case digital software. We worked in Revit, and that was our interface between all of these different people working together. And it generated an immense amount of data, and we had to go through many iterations. Some of it went well, other stuff was very difficult, but we did it. We did it in 2.5 years. I think it's a longer process than you would expect, but it has to do with approvals and also talking to the city. This at that point was the biggest project in Frankfurt. So we took our time. Here it's really diving into the geometrical principles. We had a partner called Digitales Bouwen. They were like the super nerd. They had like this mathematical geometrical ideas, but they really helped us to look at the clean setup at a very early stage. So we did a phase 0 basically before we restarted, just to kind of clean our design from these irregularities. And you see down to the very precise angles, 90 degrees and 35 degrees, all regulated, and also in line with the whole zoning policy. So Frankfurt's a little bit like New York. You have a zoning policy to allow natural daylight, also on the neighboring plots. So every time we adjusted any kind of geometry on the buildings, we had to go back to the municipality and present a very intense process. So our design work is very much in Rhino, and then that goes into Revit. And then all the while you're controlling the numbers. So this is really about how do you control all the GFA. And then just the sheer amount of iterations that goes into the process, adjusting grasshopper scripts, adjusting all the balance, and been testing this. And that's what we usually do, like thinking in scenarios, optimizing, testing, see if it looks nice, if the composition is good. And this goes, say, all the way from the overall volume down into the facade, for example. So here you see the tower volumes, and then in a very detailed way how that's split up. So we have a 135 meter facade grid. And then, yeah, what we like to do is kind of, we like to have a smart setup, which allows a certain amount of diversity. And it will depend on the client, the market, how far we can go. In this market, I think we could introduce quite a lot of depth in the facade. So we proposed a method whereby the thinnest facade was 25 centimeters deep, but we also wanted certain areas where you had like a much more faceted effect. So there we could go up to 400 millimeter. And then we had to make a deal with the developer that on average we would have 28 millimeter depth. Then we could do it. We were playing with it, so we were testing the system, documenting it in different modules. Here you see an extract of a full facade model, and this is just nice graphics. So we have like a diagonal element to dress it up. This here you see part of the residential facade. We're using GRC cladding. In some areas we have the aluminium fins, and that's how it's built up. And eventually, yeah, documenting it in these kind of drawings that also show the scale of the property and, yeah, the intended density. So this is looking up in one of the images. So you see how close the towers are near each other in this rendering. And then, yeah, of course, when we went to site and it was built, yeah, it's just very impressive to see how much is happening. I took my girlfriend as key stakeholder in the project, who supported me over 2.5 years, being away always, to the site. And then she was expecting a nice half-an-hour tour. But then the site architect kept on going, and we spent 5 hours on site until I was friendly reminded that we should also do some light shopping and dinner. So we did that. But yeah, for me, yeah, this is the stuff I really like. So here you see two towers. So this for me shows density. So it shows very elegant, very disciplined design and the density of the thing. So you get the views, you get the public amenities in the plinth. For me, it's still the top level that's most exciting. So this is on the loading dock. Fortunately, not so nice weather, but still, yeah, great fun because you go up there, experience. But the most important part, the ground level. So here you have food hall, you have shops, you have F&B, and you have all these connections. So it's fully pedestrianized. There's a very nice sculpture to the bottom that you don't see. So it's adding a lot of quality in the center of Frankfurt. This is still a CGI image. At the moment, it's still a building site, but it's very close to completion. So I would invite you all to go there and to test if it actually works on the ground level. Then another project. This is not a tall building, but I think I find it very interesting because it's part of our evolution. It's like how we dealt with sustainability as a topic. Before we realized that, yeah, it's really about people and their health. And this was one of the last sites right in the center of Amsterdam that could be redeveloped. It used to be the railway yard. So at the bottom you see an old building in the 90s, which used to be the central post office. And the whole area was developed in a dock model. So what we did there, and I think it's also very interesting for Mumbai, is that we developed a parking dock which is essentially a 3-layer parking, which was underground. And this is the way to get rid of the cars, but to allow different buildings to be built on top that could all use the same parking. So it's an urban intervention to create a great parking situation. And yeah, the interesting thing here is we did this project for Booking.com. They're a travel company, they're a digital company. They're very successful. They actually make a lot of money. And they grew to 8 different locations in the city. And they realized that they wanted to bring their people together in one building. And the idea was, of course, an efficient workplace, but also the recognizing that people need to work together. The idea that they would get a better company if people would meet each other in a very pleasant work environment. So a lot of their workforce are programmers, so not the most outgoing and social people. But here, by creating all these areas, such as the wellness areas, we went there visiting the building. There were breakout spaces, people playing ping pong, and it's very activated setup. We worked with their HR department, who became basically the head of HR became their, let's say, internal chief development officer, because he was the person who knew most about the people actually working there. And that started to kind of inform some of our principal decisions. So yeah, here you see some photos of the finished project. And one of the main interventions was to create a central space, effectively the void, with a lot of daylight, very oversized, also bridges, stairs. All the lifts are basically hidden to encourage people to actually walk and go by the stairs, again, creating more interaction. It's about movement, it's about community. So here you see the stairs facilitating movement. You don't see the lifts. The lift lobbies are hidden in the back of the building. And through these kind of diagonal spaces, the building starts to work as a place of interaction. Oh, which you see very nicely in this diagram. So this is just split through the building. Right. Below you see the parking. Above you see the main offices. It's a very dense site. It's next to a railroad track. And from the street level, where a lot of people are moving, they're being drawn in. So initially, the idea was even to make the office fully public. But when they opened it, they realized, yeah, also there were some security concerns, also concerns about the work being done and the data. So now there are security gates, but this was the extent that we're trying to make this part of the city. We're always inside, so we better make the inside, first of all, part of the city, but also a more healthy place to live. And we worked closely with our MEP engineers on the MEP systems. So one of the key achievements here is the low-level ventilation from the floors, very pleasant way of experiencing fresh air and air conditioning. Yeah, and then all these kind of quality spaces throughout the building. So different restaurants, different activity-based working areas where you can sit with your own team, work on different topics. We did a lot of study into the differentiation in work. So you have focus work, but you have also meetings, you have maybe brainstorms. So it's a lot of different ways to interact. And we kind of specifically design certain areas for certain functions. So this shows both the breakout spaces and the activity paths. A lot of green in the building. This is the main atrium, so a lot of daylight, people moving, high comfort. We're doing a post-occupancy study to see how some of the interventions actually work out. Yeah, the goal would, of course, be to claim the fact that people are calling in ill less. So that's what we think is happening, but we are studying this in detail, and it will be a big win if we actually manage to do that. So here you see the Dutch aspect. So we like our bikes, again, activity. But in the end, it's about the community sitting together, connected to Amsterdam as a city. And I'll end with this slide about yeah, happy and healthy people using one of our buildings. That's it for today.
Well, can't believe it. We're 2 minutes ahead of time. So can we get the 4 speakers up here? And we have just a short Q&A session before the vote of thanks. So can I get 4 speakers? Okay, looking to the audience to ask some difficult questions. So, please. I'll start with one. I think the big challenge in Mumbai is dealing with authorities. Carl mentioned 2-meter cantilever. So I'm asking the question, both parties. What's it like in Netherlands, in Holland? Do you have the same challenges? And to the Indian colleagues, the challenges over here. So maybe we'll start with.
Yeah, so I think we are facing the same challenges. There might be a different, slightly different set of rules. In my experience, it does take time, and say also as an architect, there's a certain level of experience you need. So past projects and talking to the municipality, so you can properly guide this process. And then I think, like Carl said, it's also the challenge to solve the puzzle in an interesting way. So that would be my position.
Make a comment, Carl.
Yeah, I think we have a basic lack of trust in India. So when an engineer says he can do this and an architect says he can do that, the authorities they start at a point of mistrust. And then how do you navigate and convert that mistrust into trust? I suppose it's because of decades of chori that the mistrust has obviously come into the system. And if I think in the future we will see a system of conversation between authorities and designers and builders, because the code books are meant to be guides, not so prescriptive that you have to, because otherwise your whole city will look the same. So this is the problem we face in Mumbai, at least, and in India, that we always start from a position of mistrust. That I think that will change.
May I add, back on the days when I was doing architecture, I was living in Singapore. I was working on the Singapore University of Technology and Design. It's the 4th public university of Singapore. It's designed by UN Studio. And we work with DP architects. And the way we look at these constraints is always like a game. When DP comes and says, UN Studio, you don't understand. And then they will tell us this and this and this. And then the conversation gets so interesting because it's about challenge. So I think it's a different context to India, probably because regulatory is still forming. Every city has different regulation. And it's not transparent, probably, and it might change over time. But in the Singapore context, it was quite clear, and they're quite rigid. And for that reason, we always try to figure out how can we win GFA, how can we work around that. One story was about the angle of the fin. The public Singapore University is 7-story tall, and they have a corridor. And there was a discussion about closed corridor and about the angle of sun and rain that will cast with a certain angle, and those are calculated as GFA or not. So that conversation in the end created a lot of open circulation, naturally ventilated circulation. And we put in, play with the angle, but also play with the planter box. It's a definition of GFA, but in the end creating quite interesting circulatory space. So I think you might not be able to change the other contexts, but the mentality that we approach it is more from that perspective. That makes our job a little bit more fun. Like a comment.
Yeah, so what I would like to say is, like we saw in the case of Minerva or let's say Crown, there are always avenues that people find to flout the laws. And I think every time a regulation changes, it's because the authorities understand that's the way it's flouted and they change it. So I think it's just going to constantly get evolved with time, and I think transparency will ultimately be the key.
Just a quick question, because the authorities are quite, I think they know everything about tall buildings, but in terms of the cultural projects that you did you still have the same challenges? Or are they less challenging?
Challenges, yes, but I would say there are environmental challenges, or let's say in various cities like Kolkata has its own challenges in terms of ponds and water bodies, but I would say not as much as Bombay or any metropolitan city, as what all these other projects are primarily second-tier cities, so not as much.
Okay, thanks. Okay, questions to the audience. Can't be that shy.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask, with reference to your FSI or FAR or TFA as you call it, you spoke about Malian depths, and so your land zones vary from 250 millimeters to 400 millimeters, being an average of 280 millimeters. And you talk about Jodi in India, as we say. So in terms of those permissions, in terms of how is it actually calculated? Do you take it back to Malian? Do you take it to the edge of the slab? Do you take it to the face of the facade? Because there's different countries, and sometimes that compliance there as well.
Yeah, so I think it's will be different in different countries, but here it's very much about the efficiency of the building and the material used. So we made an agreement with the developer to calculate from the back of the mullion, and initially we were pushing for the 400 millimeter depth, which just gives a very nice resolution to the facade. And I think it was a very difficult discussion because we had to give away quite some depth, but because we were able to kind of quantify and calculate the setup, the developer had a level of trust that they could make a deal with us. I'm not sure if it's the best deal, but yeah, so they're paying for the building, so that's where we are facilitating the discussion, trying to get the best aesthetical result and listening to the client. Yeah, and I think that's the benefit of also all the digital planning, is that you have this data, so you can just pull it out, put it on the table, talk about it. And that's where I think, once we reached that agreement, then we were set. and it was never challenged again. Yeah.
Thanks. Look, I've been told that people are getting hungry, so I'm going to shorten it a little bit. But thank you very much. There's going to be plenty of time to ask questions while we have a drink, so eat some food, good food. I'd like to call upon Anuja Sawant, who is also a director of CTBUH India, and she'd like to give the vote of thanks. And you can stay there.
Before that, I think I'll call Girish and Anil for some felicitation of the presenters. So Girish and Anil, Girish, you can come first. First, we would like to felicitate our guest of honor, Sean Mills. Big round of applause. Thank you, Sean. Next is Ren Yi. Apurva. That's fantastic presentation. May I call upon Carl? That was humorous and we enjoyed all joining. Tom? May I call upon Tom? So along with this, I'm going to shorten and say thank you to all of you. It was exciting and wonderful. Big round of applause, come on. Honey, can we have you here? And we have to say thank you to our sponsors. So first sponsor is Siderise. Very Srini. He was as good as an architect. Wonderful presentation. Srini, we really enjoyed the sponsor presentation. There was a lot of exciting things.
Okay.
Can I request someone from Shuko to be here? Ani, you be here. Can I request Turner representative to be here? We would like to thank UN Studio to be one of our partners and sponsors for today. Thank you so much. Thank you, WW. Can my UR team join me for a few seconds with me? So, before I say thanks to everyone, all the guests and presenters, on behalf of Chairman CTBUH India, Girish Dravid, Vice Chairman Anil Hira, and my core team, which is Subodh, Nikhil, Yogesh, Tag, Rohit, Suraj, Sandeep, Gautam, and Pushamitra. I thank all of you. You can see these young faces of architects and engineers who run around to make this event happen. So looking forward to meet all of you again and again. As a green initiative, we maintain these badges for you, so we want you to come back again and again. So we'll be preserving your badges, so do drop them at the entry points and enjoy your dinner and wine, and we will continue our networking. Thank you so much. Good night.
dinner and drinks on the other side.